Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're getting into something huge, a question that's at the heart of all this AI stuff. Is it actually thinking, or is it just a really, really good parrot?
I mean, you see it, right? AI is getting wild, more powerful by the day. But that makes you wonder. We need some kind of yardstick here, a way to tell the difference between an AI that's just, guessing the next word in a sentence, and one that's truly thinking through a problem. So how do we do that? Let's get into it.
Okay, so one group of researchers, and their lead author is Louis Revort, they're saying that the real test for intelligence, what we should be looking for, is this thing called hypothetic deductive reasoning. Now, I know that sounds super academic, right? But it's actually a simple two-step that you and I do constantly. It's like this. First, you look at a problem and you form a hunch, a hypothesis about what rules are in play. And second, you use those rules to logically work out the answer. It's how scientists work, sure, but it's also how you figure out why your Wi-Fi isn't working.
And really, a simpler way to think about this is just causal reasoning. Our basic grasp of cause and effect. If I do this, that happens. Push one domino, the next one falls. Super simple stuff. And Vervoort's team makes a really good point. If an AI can't even get that right, if it can't master these absolute basics of logic, then how could it ever handle more complex thinking? It's like trying to do calculus before you've learned to add.
All right, so how do you test this? Well, the researchers basically gave ChatGPT a bunch of these abstract puzzles. They used what they call neuron diagrams. Think of them like little flowcharts of logic. One thing can trigger another, something else might block it, there are all these different pathways. The whole point is to force the AI to stop just matching patterns it's seen before, and to actually reason its way through the chain of events. What causes what?
And here's where it gets really, really interesting. When they gave it a tricky one, a complex puzzle, ChatGPT-4 just whiffed. It got it completely wrong. The right answer was that a certain neuron, E, does fire. But ChatGPT came back and said, nope, E does not fire. And get this, it then confidently explained why it was right, laying out its totally flawed logic. It completely missed the crucial step. It was a total breakdown in basic causal reasoning.
Now you might think, okay, maybe that was just one weird question. But nope, this wasn't a one-off. Across all 26 of these logic puzzles, the super advanced GPT-4 model only got 13 right. 13 out of 26. That's a 50-50 shot, basically a coin flip. That points to a pretty massive gap, right? A serious weakness when it comes to actual step-by-step thinking.
Okay, but let's play devil's advocate for a second. Let's say a future AI comes along and just aces these tests, gets a perfect 26 out of 26. Does that mean we're done? Does that mean it's a real thinker? Well, maybe not. There's another group of researchers, Teppo Felin and Matthias Hollweg, and they argue that even if an AI passes these logic tests, we're still missing the bigger picture, something much more fundamental about what intelligence even is.
Think about this quote from the Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman. You should replace humans by algorithms whenever possible. That's a pretty stark statement, right? And it's the logical conclusion if you believe intelligence is just about processing the information we already have, just faster and better. If that's the whole game, then yeah, algorithms are going to win. They should win. But Felin and Hollweg are basically saying, wait a minute, is that really the game we're playing? Is that all intelligence is?
And they draw this really fascinating contrast. They say we're dealing with two totally different ways of thinking. Current AI, it's data first. It starts with everything that has ever been written, all the data from the past, and uses it to predict the most likely, the most probable outcome. But humans, they argue, we're belief first. We can start with just an idea, a theory, a hunch about how the world could be. And then we use that belief to go out and create brand new information that never existed before.
The term they use for this is data belief asymmetry, and it's a powerful idea. It's not just about being stubborn, It's this uniquely human superpower to believe in something that all the existing evidence says is nuts. To hold on to an idea that, if you just looked at the data, seems completely delusional. And their big claim is that this asymmetry is the engine of all real innovation and discovery.
To make this concrete, let's look at maybe the best example in all of history, the invention of the airplane. I mean, think about it. If you're an AI back at the turn of the 20th century, a purely data-first thinker, what would you conclude? You'd look at all the available data and come to one and only one conclusion. Human flight is impossible. period.
And this wasn't just some random person's opinion. This was the top of the scientific establishment. We're talking about Lord Kelvin, one of the smartest physicists alive, the head of the Royal Society, for crying out loud. He flat out declared that heavier-than-air flying machines are impossible. And all the data backed him up. Physics said no, biology said no, every single failed attempt screamed no.
The public was right there with him. I mean, check this out. Just 2 months, before the Wright brothers actually did it, the New York Times ran an editorial saying it would take from 1 million to 10 million years to figure out. So if you were just looking at the data, believing in flight wasn't just wrong, it was delusional.
But here's the thing. The Wright brothers didn't start with the data. They started with a belief, and that belief wasn't just, we can fly. It was a belief that led them to create a theory. They took this giant impossible thing and they broke it down. They said, okay, this isn't one impossible problem. It's 3 hard but solvable problems. We need to solve for lift. We need to solve for propulsion. And we need to solve for control.
And this right here is the absolute game changer. They didn't just look at the old failed data. Their theory told them what new data they needed. So what they do? They built their own wind tunnel in their bike shop, and they started testing wing shapes one by one, creating a whole new data set from scratch, information that literally did not exist in the world until they made it. Their belief didn't just interpret data, it created it.
So you see the two sides, right? On one side, you have all the data of the past, the world's collective knowledge which said, nope, heavy things don't fly. Everyone who tries fails. The experts agree it's impossible. And on the other side, you have the Wrights' belief in a future that didn't exist yet. Their conviction that this was just an engineering puzzle they could crack with a good theory and some new experiments. That, right there, is the data-belief asymmetry in its purest form.
Okay, so let's tie these two big ideas together. Remember that hypothetico-deductive reasoning we talked about at the start? The Wright brothers used it perfectly. They made hypotheses about lift, propulsion, and control, and they deduced how to build a machine from that logic. But, and this is the whole shebang right here, the only reason they even got a chance to use that logic was because they first had a belief so powerful it let them completely ignore the mountains of data saying you will fail. That data-belief asymmetry wasn't just a nice-to-have. It was the ticket to the game. It was the prerequisite for all the logical work that followed.
So what's the big takeaway here? What does this all mean? Well, when you put it all together, you see a really deep, almost profound difference between how today's AI operates and how human innovation really happens.
Here's the bottom line. AI is incredible at predicting the future based on the past. It sifts through everything that's ever happened to tell you what's most probable. But human intelligence, when it's really firing on all cylinders, does the opposite. It creates a future based on a belief. It's not about finding what's probable. It's about creating what's possible.
And that contrast actually frames how we could work with AI perfectly. AI's strength is its data belief symmetry. It's a flawless reflection of the data it has. It is what the data is. But our unique power, our superpower, it's our data belief asymmetry. It's our weird, wonderful, and essential ability to chase after things that all the data says are impossible. And that leaves us with one last kind of mind-bending question to chew on. To get to true artificial general intelligence, that holy grail, is the final barrier just about giving it a bigger and bigger library of the past? Or is the final piece of the puzzle something that can't be found in data at all? Is it something deeply human? The ability to believe in something that doesn't exist yet?